Good morning and welcome. I'm Bob Pace, your host for Fighting CPS and Getting Your Children Back. Yes, this is an agency you got to be careful about. The Child Protection Services is not what you think it is. I know that from firsthand experience. I've been fighting for over 14 years, and over 100 people I've talked to have had the same similar problem. Child Protection Services traffics your children. They steal your children. They take your children, even if it's not an imminent danger. You know, they take your children. It's automatic. It's no longer an option, and they don't believe in family reunification. They think all cases are the same. And it's a horrible, horrible, horrible feeling to know that. It really is hard because you love your children. I know you do. I love mine. And somehow CPS has taken advantage of low income people that are experiencing hard times, maybe being homeless or whatever, and they prey on them. It's a money situation that they prey on. They take away your children because they need the money. They open a case and right away they're collecting $20,000 per child per month from both the state and the federal government. It's ridiculous. Now you're probably asking yourself, what can I do? That's always the number one question. What can I do about my case? Um, okay. Wow. Um, with that being said, it's sad. It really is. Now, this show has several ways you can interact with it. Sometimes I have a guest on that tells about their story. This morning, I have no guest scheduled. But if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can call into my office number 626 698 0990. And you can talk automatically about your case. And I can put you on the speakerphone and everybody will hear you. They won't see you, but they'll hear you. And you can, say some things that may help other people out there. Another way is that you can text comments to me. All you do is go to the comment section below and type in a comment. Please give your name, city, and state where you're from. If you're from another country, that's okay. I'd love to hear from you. We've had people from Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, and Ghana text me messages. So by texting, you just, as you say, put your name and then the city and the state or the country and the city. That's the second way you can interact with the show. A third way, if you don't want to talk right now and want to go on one of my podcasts, I'm on 7 days a week, twice a day. I'm on 10 o'clock in the morning for an hour Pacific Standard Time, and then 7 o'clock an hour Pacific Standard Times. The only exception to that is on Sunday. I come on a half an hour later because of a previous podcast. Now, if you want to be on one of my 14 shows, all you do is email you to my producer, Grace at vincentwdavis.com. That's Grace at vincentwdavis.com, and she'll put you one of my 14 podcasts. You just say, I want a morning or an afternoon. I want a Monday or a Wednesday or whatever the time that you want. And that she'll help you get on to the podcast. You found us through Facebook. We broadcast on YouTube. And the application I'm using is called StreamYard. StreamYard is the application I'm using. And I can put another person with me talking on this podcast. It is live. I'm from Southern California, and so's the law firm that produces this podcast. The law firm is Vincent W. Davis and Associates. It's a professional law firm with many lawyers that practice many aspects of law. They have criminal law, they have dependency law, they have immigration, they have workmen's comps laws, they got divorce, family law and stuff like that. So any lawyer you're looking for, but the one you need, the one that's so important that can handle your case is family law, a family law attorney. And the attorney that is the best one suited for from this law firm is Vincent W. Davis. He's a professional family law attorney. He can do dependency, juvenile cases. He has fought CPS. He has beaten CPS. He has gotten children back. He has a long, long time of doing this. He's a trial attorney. And he is offering right now a consultation for 30 minutes to talk to him, and he'll give you strategies of how to fight CPS and how to get your children back. For $49.99, he'll give you 30 minutes. That's his consultation. And if you want to set it up, you call into the other office number, 888-888-6582. That's 888-888-6582. And when you talk to the office, tell them that Bob Pace sent you, and then you schedule your time with Mr. Davis. And when you do talk to Mr. Davis, tell him that Bob Pace sent you, so he knows that I'm trying to get people to come to him and so forth. Now, you're probably asking the same old question again, who am I? I'm a loving man, a father, married for 32 years, over 32 years. And unfortunately, at the age of 60 in 2010, I lost my job through no fault of my own. It was a terrible experience to have that happen because I had a family to take care of. And you're probably asking, well, why is it not your fault you lost your job? Well, the reason I lost my job is that I had all this contract work to do with the state of California in construction. I had gotten a lot of public works contracts that had public funding in them. But the governors saw that in 2010, the state of California was experiencing money shortage. So they wrote me IOUs for contract work. Well, IOUs doesn't pay the bills, and I cannot be a general contractor and do these jobs. So I had to close my business doors. And it's very hard at that age to get a job. Somehow people perceive that people in their 60s or older can't work anymore. In fact, I heard in one country, in the Philippines, if you reach 55, you're not allowed to work in the Philippines, which I think is silly. And um, so this has happened at a bad time for me. It was a bad time for me because previously I'd lost half in 1997. Oh, I'm sorry, 2007. 2007, the banks were going bellied up, and I lost $40,000 of my retirement. I had 40 years retirement. I lost 20 years of it, and that was hard to swallow. Then also because the banks were collapsing because of all the predatory loans they had given out. And I'm one of those people. I had a predatory loan. My loan was documents were altered, my income was doubled so that the lender could get his bonus for signing me on. In fact, I was refinanced twice during when there was a booming bust, and he got bonuses both times. And so, I'm really hurting when I lost my job because I have money saved away. Part of it was gone, but I was out there trying to get a job. But then I started receiving complaints from CPS. And why is CPS complaining I don't have work? They weren't doing that. Is the way the allegations were made. They're made by lay people. They were my in-laws, my wife's family, and they were insinuating that we weren't taking care of the children. We weren't taking care of the children, which is far from the truth. I was still paying my mortgage for my savings. I was providing them food and so forth, but I had to cut back to a Spartan lifestyle. I could no longer afford the Disneyland passes at Disneyland. They were just too outrageous. So the first thing I noticed that happened the first of the year, 2011, we could no longer go to Disneyland. And that's something that as a family we did all the time because it was a family outing. Well, these complaints kept coming in. They call me up and say, we need to meet you. And I'd meet them at my car. I didn't really meet at my house at first. And I would show them, like, I was accused of not providing electricity or heat and water or anything. I showed them all my utility bills are paid. So that took care of that matter. And then they come back later for something else. And it's something else and something else. And at one time, I allowed them in my house, which at that time was not a mistake because nothing that was bad in the house. But the rule number 3 in my rules, you don't let them in the house. You don't talk to social workers. And I thought they could be trusted. I had no idea that they're non-transparent, that they lie, they cheat. I soon found out from these allegations they believe they were true. And this went on for 5 years with these complaints. And my in-laws for 5 years were trying to get our children. And so this went on to the point where I was tricked by a policeman, a detective, who had a black and white pull me over so that he could talk to me and demanded I go back to my home. And I didn't want to comply. And you don't have to, by the way. It's your constitutional right to not let people in your home, not let your people in home. Hello, we have John Dove. Just text me. I'm sorry that you can't see me. John, what city and state are you from? What city and state are you from? And do you have something about um, your do you have something about the CPS? If you have a CPS case, John Doe. Also, what city and state are you from? Welcome, Kathy. You're from Texas. Moved twin, 6 weeks old granddaughter. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. You must be a grandmother. I've been getting a lot of calls from grandmothers. If you'd like to talk on this podcast, you can call in at 626-698-0990. And you could tell me what's going on in Texas with your daughters. This was a 6-week-old child. Wow. And they're removed. That's typical. CPS does that. They remove your child that really isn't not necessarily they're in imminent danger. I mean, was this child in imminent danger? That's why they removed a 6-week-old child. I mean, that child still needs its biological mother and father. And I can't believe that CPS would do that. Well, I hope that, if you want to, you can call in at 626-698-0990 and you can talk. You can talk. So as I was saying, I was finally going through this perfect storm because after I started getting these complaints from CPS, my parents were slowly dying, and I had their belongings placed in my home because I was sorting through them and going to ship them to relatives. They asked me to. The only problem is that got me into trouble because when the police followed me, the detective followed me, I was at school. I mean, my son was at school, so I was picking him up. And then I was going to pick up my wife. And instead, I had to deal with this black and white that pulled me over. And then when the black and white said, there's a guy you need to talk to, he said he demanded me to come home. Now, if I knew about a warrant or knew about, something like this, I would never have said that. I would have said, I'm going to go and get my wife. But I felt intimidated. The black and white policeman was in a typical uniform, but the detective was in combat boots and fatigues, and he looked like he was on a mission to do something. And I had no idea why this urgency to look at my home because there's nothing in there. But they did. They asked me to come home, and I went into my private home. I actually went into the driveway, and there was all these people standing in front. I couldn't believe it. 3 social workers, 5 firemen, 2 code enforcement, 2 uniformed policemen, and the detective. Why does it take so many people to come into my home? And I thought maybe my home had burned down or someone had broken in. I live in a private, neighborhood, so I really couldn't expect what was happening. But what they were doing is that they've been harassing me for 5 years, and they were determined to find something on me. And even though they've been in my home in previous times, it wasn't where I had all my parents' belongings. And yes, it was a lot of my parents' belongings. And they were around. So when they came to home and saw my parents' belongings, they said, that is neglect to your child. They're in immediate danger. Now, I don't know what a box would do. I don't think it has wings, can fly upstairs and attack the kid in his bedroom. They're at school all day anyway. And the same thing with the furniture. Does the legs move on the furniture and they walk upstairs and attack the kids? It was ridiculous what they were coming up with because they were trying to find out. The firemen were there to check out the smoke alarms. I don't know why it takes 5 firemen to check out a smoke alarm, but they're seeing if they're functional, if they're proper insulation and those kinds of things. Code enforcement was there to make sure that the back door was locked. Little ones can go into the pool and that there was a gate and a perimeter fence around the pool, which luckily I had all those things. So all code enforcement came up with is I had a loose gate and I need to tighten my loose gate. And then he said that my landscaping had overgrown. I said, well, I lost my job. I can no longer afford my landscapers, and I had to do it myself. And at the time I was 65 years old, and so they talked and they did everything. And little did I know that not only did CPS write me up for neglect, the police detective filled out a report, and he wrote me up for um, neglect also. And then the district attorney filed charges against me and my wife, criminal charges, for 3 counts of neglect and 3 counts of sex. But they wouldn't tell you what the sex was about. That was the weirdest thing because there's nothing sexual. Even CPS wasn't charging for the sex. But later I found out that that's a negotiation tip where they drop that charge and have you stick with the other charge. It's an SOP that police use to tack on other illegal charges. I was being railroaded. And it got worse and worse. I wish these allegations were made in writing and signed by the person that made it. Keep their identity hidden, but if they say falsified things, then you go back and sue them. Well, I didn't know it was my in-laws at first. That's something that I found out later. But it's really, 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 really hard. It is so, so, so hard. Again, John Doe, if you want to say where you're from and what your CPS matter, I'd gladly talk to you about it. Kathy, if you want to come on and talk about your granddaughter, 6 weeks old, that's in the hands of CPS, how did that happen? I'd like to hear about that. And anybody else that wants to text a message, please feel free to do so. All I ask is your name, the city and state, or the country and city. So, as I say, these allegations, they thought they were true, and the kids were supposedly in intimate danger from my parents' belongings. So, it was hard. It was hard. The next thing we went to is what's called a safety meeting, where they talk about where the children will stay. See, I had my son with me because I picked him at school, so they took him there. But they went to my children's other schools and took them out of the school. That was horrific. That was worse, and they didn't know what was happening and what was doing. And then all 3 children were hustled to a concrete block shelter near the dependency courts and also next door to the juvenile jail. And so they're exposed to inmates there and their behaviors. And then also, they were not protected because the inmates could have, harmed my children. They could have stuck their hands through the fence or did something. And on top of that, there are bees and there are beehives and it could sting the children. So it was not a protective shelter what they put them in. It was very sterile, very impersonal, and they didn't have much in the way of food that they're used to eating. And so they were put into a in a shelter until we had the safety meeting. And that safety meeting, they're supposed to do something really important, and this is something to all you Native American Indians. There's an act of 1975 called the ICWA, Indian Child Welfare Act. And that's where it says that CPS social workers must find out if the parents or the kids are registered to a government tribe, recognized federal government tribe. And if they aren't, then also see if they can be added in to the family, the tribe there, because the tribe takes care of its own. That's what the whole thing was about. For so long, American Indians children were taken by CPS, and this is supposed to put a stop to it because they're supposed to turn the children over to the tribe, and their families will take care of the children. Their families would take care of the children if they deem that they had uh, abuse or neglect the children. See, that's the hard thing about it, is you guys are going to be faced with the fact is that they're saying that abuse or neglect has occurred, which is a lie. It's a lie in my case and a lie of the other people that I talked to. So it's hard sometimes to talk about your case. That's why I was hoping that someone would want to call in and talk about their case, and then I can answer their questions. This leads me into that rule number one about hiring an attorney. You need someone that knows how to fight CPS and knows all the pitfalls and what to do about them. Now, a reason why I mentioned you need an attorney is just like if you're having open heart surgery, replace a valve, you're going to get yourself a professional doctor that's been educated, trained, and has done an internship and waiting out his time after mentoring someone else in the field. So, all this being said, is that it could be done, but I'm thankful it didn't because I didn't want to see the children broke up about something. Um, so you'll find out it's like Alice in Wonderland. You fall in a rabbit hole and you go through all these doors and obstacles. It's a spaghetti nightmare. It's like a spider spinning a web that's take you in. They don't like you. They don't want to help you. They take money as soon as they open a case against you. And the motivation force for them is not to do a good job, but is to get money from the parents by having the children in their custody. So you need this attorney, and I'm telling you that Mr. Davis is the one. He's offering a seminar for 30 minutes, not a seminar, a consultation for 30 minutes to talk about your case and how you can strategize getting your children back and fighting CPS. So that say you need to follow through with rule number one. Because I didn't get an attorney and it hurt my case. And it took an attorney to get two of my three children back. And it hurts me every day to know that my daughter is gone. It's a sad thing as parents because you all are in the same feeling. You raise a child and suddenly you're caught up with a bureaucracy about places and safe for your children. And then they take your children and they want money back to get your children. It's really crazy system. It's a crazy system. Now, when you call in to 888-682, ask for a consultation with Mr. Davis, and it's 30 minutes for $49.99. Make sure you tell them that Bob Pace sent you, and when you talk to Mr. Davis, say the same thing that Bob Pace sent you. So that part's really important. So that takes care of the attorney. And so when I was doing this safety meeting to determine where the kids would be, we selected that it'd be with um, my wife's sister and husband. And they agreed to take care of them for a period of time. But as they can see, it's a lot of work shuttling between the schools and feeding them and entertaining them and so forth. So, like I'd like to say, though, it was really better to have them there than it was at the next place. And that's where during that safety meeting we plan to have our children stay with that um, for a couple months. But then they had to be go some other place. They went to a group home. And a group home sound better than foster care. They always want to go to foster care, only because foster care parents will do what they say, and that foster care made by CPS. That's how they were trained, and so they're going to be trained to, and they abuse children as well as CPS does. All you have to do is look at the scarring of all the cases, and you can find it there. Um, the safety plan meeting is very important, and it's your constitutional rights to have one. You have the rights to educate your child and to provide health care to them. They cannot be taken away. And you have rights to tell where your children can stay. So when all this is going on, you want to start getting a notebook on all the issues that come up. It's a CPS notebook that you write down all the incidents. You want to write down the date, the time, the people involved, and then what the incident was about, and what you could do about it. Now, that leads me to the next rule. And that one I was talking to was your notebook. And you want to record all these incidents with the date, time, and who was involved, the children, the social worker, the policeman, everything, and what the incident was about, and then how the incident resolved or how was it resolved. If you don't have the answer, you don't have to worry about it right away. You get it later when you do have the answer, because you'll find that CPS will be dragged out longer and longer. With me, it was dragged out for 3 years. And with another guy, it was 8 years, I remember. And some people have done a lot less. So be prepared to be um, um, just be prepared to go through a lot of hell. The CPS workers are corrupt. They don't like you, and they think all parents are bad. And they think nothing about parents that can. Um, so now I'll talk to you about attorney. I'll talk about notebook. Rule 3 is what I touched briefly on earlier. That is, you say no to social workers, no to police. Don't let them in your home. Do not let them take your children away. It has to be a necessity for them to take children away. It can't be because you're in foster care and now you're having children of your own that you're going to be in danger of these children. No, that doesn't work. They'll use all kinds of trickery and deception to try to keep your children and try to eventually have them adopted. Their goal is not to help out with family reunification. Their goal is child trafficking. They have your son or daughter adopted by social workers that they can control. I'm talking about, you know, the majority of this has been taking place. So if they have a warrant, they can remove your child. They can remove your child. Now, you'll find out that the child welfare system rarely offers the same rights and the criminal as in the criminal justice system, leaving many of you guys facing permanent separation without due process or protection. Now, every year, child protection services agencies across the nation investigates the family lives of roughly 3.5 million children. Now, think about all the money that they're going to get from 3.5 million children. It's roughly about 1 out of every 20 American kids. So, every 20 American kids you see out there, one of them is being child trafficking. Now, in these cases, government officials frequently accuse parents of wrongdoing. They enter a home to conduct searches and interrogations of what they find can be used against you by a state attorney in court. And the accused will face punishment, including often having their children removed from them indefinitely. That is the hardest thing. Now, you'll find that the most low income families who are ensnarled in this vast system have few of the rights that protect Americans when it's the police who investigate them. According to dozens of interviews with constitutional lawyers, defense attorneys, family court judges, CPS caseworkers, and parents, you get more due process protection when facing a couple months in jail than you do when you face losing your kids forever. The right to remain silent, the right to a public jury trial, the right to face your accuser, and so on are not recognized and enforced by the courts in the child welfare system. They're not recognized. And neither is the related idea of innocent and proven guilty, or the standard that the guilt must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. You are guilty by CPS social workers, and they treat you like a criminal, and they do take away your child. They do take away your child. Now you're going to find out the right to remain silent, the right to a public jury trial, and the right to face your accusers, and so on, are not recognized and enforced by the courts and the child welfare system. And of course, the innocent until proven guilty, or the standard of guilt, must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, if you look at the Fourth Amendment, for example, that the citizens must be protected from unreasonable searches and seizures by the government, and that a warrant to conduct a search should be based on probable cause, that specific evidence will be found. Child Protection Services agencies conduct millions of warrantless home searches every year and rifling through refrigerators and closets and inspect children's bodies without going to court first to say what they're looking for. In New York City, child welfare is obtained a warrant fewer than 94 times a year on an average, while conducting at least 56,000 searches annually. Now, the Fifth Amendment allows criminal defendants to remain silent to avoid self-incrimination, commonly called pleading the Fifth. But a child welfare case, which is a civil proceeding, courts are legally permitted to assume the worst of the parent who decide not to talk. So if you don't talk, they're going to assume you're the worst. Then the Sixth Amendment, which says that defense has a right to a public trial by jury, has a right to attorney, among other protections. But if the accused parent in the system even gets a trial, it's likely to not be public. Child welfare cases are heard in closed courtrooms and in at least 30 states, according to studies. Fewer than a dozen states offer the option of a jury trial for these cases. And I think it should be an open courtroom, not hide things. Then there's the Sixth Amendment, which says the defendant has a right to a public trial by jury, as a right to an attorney, among other protections. But if the accused parent in the system even gets a trial, it's likely to not be public. Child welfare cases are heard in closed courtrooms. As far as the lawyer, while some states provide one for some types of child welfare hearings, the Supreme Court has found that even people facing permanent terminations of their parental rights have no constitutional right to legal counsel because they're absolutely not at risk of losing their own physical life by going to jail. Now, CPS workers without warrant can be passed to police and prosecutors for use in criminal prosecution of parents who may be locked up as a result, according to attorney, case for police as well. This has really been happening a lot lately. You know, parents, when you have a child taken from you, that's a severe punishment than spending time in prison, and therefore viewed these cases equally deserving of due process. And there's also double jeopardy, or prosecuting a person twice for the same offense. This is allowed in welfare cases, even though it's otherwise prohibited by the Constitution. And some parents will even have their rights to a newborn baby terminated because their rights to a previous child has been terminated. So if your previous child, if you have another child, they'll terminate that one, even if there's no new allegations. When you talk to public defenders, they will tell you that police routinely get away with unconstitutional home searches by using coercive tactics to avoid having to get a warrant, or by saying something they found in a drawer was actually in plain sight and therefore could be collected without a warrant. The right to a trial in criminal court is undermined by persecution, damning extreme prison sentences or defendants to get them to plead guilty before there's a full hearing of the evidence. And that is plea bargaining. And in my case, I was getting double whammy. I was accused by CPS, and then the district attorney accused me. And they used that second charge, the sexual charge, as something plea bargain with, because they want to stick one thing with you. And it's really sad because it was hard for me. Now, these public defenders are struggling to keep up with caseloads, and they also face conflicts of interest too. And you'll find out how the police are trained. These cases are upheld by Supreme Court and other federal courts of a part of how police are trained, which is not true in child welfare. Now, why these fewer rights? Well, when the Constitution was written, there's no child welfare system. And then some amendments in the Bills of Rights were worded to apply only to criminal matters. Now, you'll find that the child welfare system is to serve kids than rather to legitimate guilt. And the social service workers, the judges, do not work together to improve a child's situation. It's about, we have about 10 minutes left of the show. And I've talked about your constitutional rights, and I've talked about what can happen and so forth. There's after the safety plan meeting, your childhood, then you're going to have a hearing about your case and a plan that is due to get your children back. You have to press them for family reunification. There's so much things you need to know that you don't know that you need to impress upon them to do. And here was this. We were a family of 6, and 3 of our children were taken from us. And we're a functional family. Instead, they broke our family. Our daughter was brainwashed into thinking she had to be adopted by foster care parents, to the point where she divorced us as parents, and then she sealed her birth certificate so no one could see who she was born to, and she changed her name. Now, those are things a 12-year-old child does not think of. And they were instituted either by the foster parents or by my family in-laws or the CPS workers. And most likely it was CPS workers. because they manipulate your children. They do something called alienation, which is against the law. There's the parent alienation, where two parents will pit the children in a divorce settlement, and that's against the law. CPS alienates the children from the parents by not having weekly get-together meetings. It's like they try to stretch it out as long as they can, hoping the parent will quit and give in. And whatever you do, do not give in and do not quit. You will get your children back. You just got to eat a lot of crow. But if you get an attorney, it's going to make your whole life a lot better. And I'm not talking about a public defender. I'm talking about a real attorney. I had to sell my home to do it. So I know what it takes. My family comes first. And I really, I love my family and I want to continue the working. I'm still out there looking for another job. Now, if you want to ever change things, you want to write this down. It's called the 388 motion. And it's a motion where a 388 is a hearing. And it's where you want to make a modification of the juvenile court judgments and orders. And to do so, it has to be filed properly with all parties being served. Don't forget the children's attorneys as well as social workers. What it is, there's a change in circumstances or new evidence. The change in circumstances could be you completed the parent classes, you completed the program, you've been drug free. New evidence could be something that you came up that proved that you weren't neglecting your children or abusing your children. And so that's the whole purpose of this hearing. Within 30 days, a judge has to have a hearing. And once you change it or modify, or you can set aside the previous court order. And it has to be filed, it has to be in writing, it has to be filed with the clerk of the juvenile dependency court. And it's got to be served to all the parties in the case. Don't forget the child's attorney and probation officer. So that hearing should be set aside in 30 days. That's where you get to argue your case and so forth. But you got to prove it. And that's where attorney will come in handy for you that. So that's what a 388 motion is. So I talked about the Indian Child Welfare Act. I've talked about the 388 motion. I've talked about your constitutional, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the 14th Amendment. Those are all amendments you need to look at. The Bill of Rights. And that's what's important there. Now, don't forget to hire that attorney or talk to an attorney. And ours is Mr. Vincent Davis. And he can do a consultation with you by you just calling in at 888-888-6582 and ask for a consultation for 30 minutes. Or you can hire your own attorney. Because after you talk to Vincent Davis, I'm pretty sure you'll retain him. He helped me in my case. He helped me with my kids were taken. I got back 2 of my 3 kids. So now I hope that you all can be a guest on my show. I want you to write an email to grace@vincentwdavis.com. That's grace@vincentwdavis.com. And schedule a time with one of my 14 shows so you can talk about your case and maybe I can help you or someone else can help you. If you stay persistent, say very little, do everything they ask, you eventually get your children back. You will get your children back. You just got to be persistent at it. And you got to make sure that you clear up any misunderstandings or anything. Be nice and courteous with them, even though I think that you don't want to, but you have to be nice and courteous with them. And it's very, very hard dealing with individuals that lie and cheat and use deception practices. They're not in there. They're doing child trafficking. They're doing alienation. They are taking your child and using your child for their own personal gain. My social worker was so bad. She was not trained. She had no social working classes taken. She didn't have a college degree. And here she is entrusted to take care of my family. And all she was interested in her bonus that she got from CPS, from Child Protection Services, her Gucci purse, her eyelashes, her makeup, her dress, her BMW car. And that's all she would talk about. That's all she was interested in. And that's wrong because, if I had a job like that, my first interest would be my children. Of course, I'd have a hard time charging anybody because I want to help them out. So you have to be persistent and educated. You need to look up everything I said. You can Google anything and it'll find you anything you want and help you along the road. And your road will be a long one. It may be 3 years, such as my case, or another guy said it was 8 years, or someone said they're still in there for 21 years. So it doesn't go away fast. It does not go away fast. It's something that just will stick with you. I want to thank all my listeners and all my emotions, emojis at the top, your hearts, your thumbs up, even your sad faces. I want to thank you all. So I want you all to think about what was said today. I want to see you tonight at my evening podcast, and hopefully we'll have a guest speaker tonight. Good luck with your case. I know you love your children. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. And I pray that you get your child back. God bless you. And thank you very much for listening. And thank you, people that texted to me, that John Doe and the Kathy Vonman. John Doe and Kathy Vonman. And with that being said, God bless you. And this is Bob Pace signing off.